Welcome to Dialogue. Recently, the Chinese government has released a list of measures to foster new growth points in the tourism sector and boost related industries. 2024 was a remarkable year for inbound tourism since China expanded its unilateral visa-free transit policy to more countries. With culture as a foundation and the empowerment of new digital technologies, China is becoming the world's leading tourist destination. What are some of the key factors driving China's tourism industry? What are some of the new trends in tourism? And what role does tourism play in creating jobs and fueling the national economy? Join us for our discussion today from Beijing. I'm Xu Qianduo. Joining me today are Liang, Kremer Chair Professor of Economics at Willamette University, Gordon Dumoulin, consultant on China affairs and founder of China21 Journal, and Simon Phillips, business development and travel vlogger. Welcome to the show. Well, Liang, I will start with you. According to this 2024 Economic Impact Trends Report released by the World Travel and Tourism Council, so China's tourism industry contributed to 1.3 trillion to GDP in 2023, according to their forecast. That's also very interesting. China is expected to surpass the US to become the world's largest tourism market in the next decade. So what do you make of this assessment?
Right. So I think tourism industry has been growing really by leaps and bounds. It recovered very well after the pandemic. When we look at this year, the first 3 quarters, the tourism revenues was projected to be 4.3 trillion yuan. And so for the whole year of 2024, it is expected to reach $6 billion revenue, 6 billion yuan. 6 billion trips for the domestic tourists. And that would also expect to generate large amount of revenues, about 17 to 18% of increase compared to 2023. So this is a booming industry. And of course, there are many driving forces behind. From the supply side, once the lockdown was relieved, the supply side really recovered very quickly. The tourism industry really helped to put back the air flights, open up a lot of the tourist attractions and so on and so forth. And then from the demand side, during the pandemic and the lockdown, people were hunkering back down at home. So now they really have this kind of revenge spending and tourism. They also have accumulated large amount of savings, and therefore, they're more than willing to spend. So we're seeing, this whole list of supply and demand factors. They're driving this industry. And it's also really much supported by, government policies that have invested in a lot of infrastructures, but also, putting a lot of sound policies, like you mentioned earlier, visa-free, transit-free kind of policies to attract more foreign visitors. And also, I think domestically, local governments also putting forth a lot of supportive policies, build a lot of these entertainment parks and, tourist sites. And so I think it's a whole kind of nation effort. So I think that's why it's really growing so rapidly, and it's generating a lot of revenues and also bring back a lot of the so-called linkages effect among different industries. So it's not just a service industry, but also, equipment manufacturing and also construction. So it really helped to boost a whole list of industries as a result of the tourism boom.
Mm-hmm. Well, Gordon, I know that you like walking in cities, so you have your own observation of the tourism development in China.
Yes, my passion for walking started during the pandemic because it was a very healthy and also inspiring thing to do, especially when traveling at that time was limited. But as I agree with Liang, it's after the pandemic, I think the pandemic actually supported the rebound of tourism, not only by people wanting to go out again, but also the digitalization of services, which really grew during the pandemic, and people were relying on those services. They went into tourism. So it's not like, I think the mindset for especially domestic tourists, for Chinese people here, It's very easy nowadays to get access to new tourist places, tourist developments, and it's very easy to organize. It's not like we need to prepare for the winter time in 2 months, and we need to organize a travel. Actually, this morning I discussed with my wife and with my two sons, how about next weekend we go to Shanxi for a couple of days, and in half an hour you could organize everything. So this whole growth is a larger trend in spending free time. What are you going to do with, for example, during holidays, like these days during Spring Festival? So the whole digitalization has brought a lot of stimulation and in the growth of tourism, especially in the last couple of years.
Simon, you have been to China for many, many times since 1998. Share with us your observation, your experience. Gordon mentioned about increasing inconvenience, to visit a place if you have a plan to do so. What's your experience?
I mean, I think what I can say over the past couple of years is I can notice the increase on people coming to China because of I believe, because of the means of social media, because the foreigners Westerners are coming over because of a very smart move with social media. Social media has made a huge impact as far as promoting China around the world. And so consequently, I believe through the power of social media and because of China's foresight with social media, it's advertised it to so many people, especially the younger generation. I can see many videos that are being made by the younger generation of the foreigners that are coming to China, which therefore promotes more people to come to China. So I believe that I think over the past couple of years, what I can say is that I've witnessed a huge growth in the younger generation that are coming over, which is obviously an awesome thing as far as the tourism sector is concerned for China.
Mm-hmm. So it's like an organic growth, tourism also promoted by tourists there. If you look at the first 3 quarters, the number of domestic tourists reached over 4.2 billion, year-on-year increase of more than 15%. And the domestic tourists spent some 4.4 trillion yuan, year-on-year increase of nearly 18%. Basically, the data is close to the historical peak level in 2019. So if you look at, of course, as you said, the multiple factors driving this development, and one, I would say, factor stands out probably for a lot of people. People would call that cultural products. For example, this black myth Wukong that has taken the world, and of course, tourists are flocking to places in which, China, where this game is set actually. So how do you look at these cultural products?
Yeah, I think so. That goes back to what you just said. You mentioned the words, the organic growth. So I think this is really, between different industries, there is a sort of synergy, right? So the gaming industry is big. It produces about 300 billion yuan market value in China, and it also has about 670 million players in that gaming industry. So this means that a lot of these games, people are playing them. They really wanted to go to the place where that the show in these games. So I think especially Black Myth Wukong, I think is such a wonderful, I would say, a product that combines the technology with really the cultural richness of the Chinese traditional culture, the sceneries and the languages, the music, and so on and so forth. So I think it becomes very attractive. So I think this is very organic in the sense that the gaming industry is promoting the tourism industry, and I'm pretty sure when the tourists visit these wonderful sites, they coming back, they're gonna play the game so much more, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think this really builds the positive synergies between the different industries. And I think Gordon also mentioned earlier about this digital economy, right? The digital technologies. It's not only help to drive these online travel agencies like Ctrip, like Tongcheng, that really made travel much more convenient. But also, as I think Simon mentioned, these digital technologies also help to power all these social media platforms, and it really helped to spread, the wonderful experiences and the travel, the experiences of the tourists. And so it really helped to multiply and help to spread the good words and help to really, generate even more, I think, tourists coming to these places. So I really see this as a great ecosystem. It has, from transportation to the entire hospitality industries, to the entertainment industries, to gaming, to technology, you name it. It's a holistic organic growth.
Holistic organic growth. Simon, you've been to these places, for making Black Myth Wukong. Your experience?
Oh my gosh, what an incredible experience and opportunity I had. My first time to go around into the places like Wutaishan, Pingyao, Gechang, Taiyuan. So my first experience was to travel on the night sleeper train to actually get there from Shanghai. That was an experience in itself. Obviously, through my own means, I make videos with my son. My son was actually dressed as Wukong, if you can believe that. So what I would like to say is this game, the game Wukong, is generating so much enthusiasm and interest, not just with the younger generation, but across many age sectors. And the beauty about opening up opportunities to travel to places like Shanxi, Wutaishan, Pingyao, Taiyuan, what that does is it drives people to want to go to visit other areas within China, as opposed to just focusing on the main areas. For example, Bingmayong, the Terracotta Army, the Beijing Great Wall, all of these are wonderful and amazing places to go to. And they are created and have created over a number of years sort of something like their own means, because it's so quintessentially traditional Chinese culture for people to want to, I must go to the Great Wall. Well, now maybe by the game of Wukong, it's going to open up these wonderful opportunities for Shanxi to embrace more people to come to. And what an experience we had to go to visit. I met so many wonderful people that had never seen a foreign person before. And it was such a beautiful experience for me and for those guys as well. So I just think that through the power of Wukong and with social media, which I mentioned once again, it's limitless, really, as far as what the future could hold, as far as maybe other areas within China and for people to come to visit.
People must be happily surprised to see, a Monkey King from afar, from the UK, right?
Yes. Very true. It's very true, especially when my son, he had a mask on, and obviously people wouldn't be aware of who it was. But then when the mask came off, and then you've got a young Western kid dressed up in Wukong, yeah, it did raise a few eyebrows, shall we say? But everybody embraced and everybody loved the fact that we were embracing Wukong. And pictures galore, and that's what it's all about. Everybody wants to enjoy themselves, have a great time, smiles on faces. Our video is done incredibly well. They were watched by many people, not only over in China, but also over in the West as well.
Good to know that. Gordon, if you look, of course, you are the China expert. You know China very well. Wukong, the journey to the West. You must be familiar with that. Many people are familiar with that. But it's probably out of expectation for a lot of people to see Black Myth Wukong got so popular as a game, and then it spreads to the tourism industry and make people flock to these places in Shanxi. Are you surprised?
No, I'm not surprised because tourism in China, and it's very much related to the history and to the culture. Wukong, the game, is actually an example of how Chinese people often experience tourism, and that's related to culture, that's related to cuisine. And people go only to Langzhou in Gansu province only to taste, a big bowl of Langzhou noodles. And they will drive for 6 hours for that.
Yeah.
And you have in all provinces, which of course generally are lesser known to foreigners, but a lot of Chinese people, they attach tourism to culture, to history, to cuisine. And in these days, with government efforts, with social media, with general development of quality sites of tourism, it's a rather competition of different cultural sites where people will go to, but it doesn't take away that people in China often tend to organize their tourism and select their tourism on culture, and whether that is Wukang or that is any historical site. And as Simon is saying, we as foreigners who are not living, I'm living in China, but who will visit China, they are often limited to information of the Terracotta Army in Xi'an, the Great Wall, Shanghai, the Pudong. But there are literally thousands of sites which Chinese people learn in school about history, about poems, about many different kind of cultural aspects. And they want to relive that in their touristic endeavors.
Culture, obviously, a very important part of tourism. My personal experience, like if you go to a specific place, often the more you know, the more you have the respect, you worship, the long history and the rich cultural the resources of a certain region. You go to Yunnan, Sichuan, Guangzhou, Shanxi, or Dongbei. Oh gosh, this is just so resourceful that it's a limited list. And the cultural projects help spread the word. And as earlier mentioned, another important factor, of course, is the social media, the internet. It's a spread the word faster, and it means that's impossible in the past. That's also, I would say, important role there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you mentioned two really important points. One is that the reason that the Chinese domestic tourism is so, growing so much, is really attributable to the kind of geographic but also cultural diversity. So I was actually I was born and raised in Guangdong, so it's in the south. So we have very different, geographic landscape and also culture than people who grew up in the north. So it's very interesting, when I have friends coming, from northern to south, and they basically trying to imitate me to speak Cantonese, and they like to watch, the Hong Kongese TV series and so on and so forth. And we go to the north, I enjoy so much those handmade noodles and so on and so forth. So I think absolutely, I think that is why I think the tourism industry is so attractive, not only to the foreigners, but also just to the Chinese, because there's so many different places they can visit, and it's so different than where they are from. So I think this really gives a lot of potential for the tourism industry and also for cultural exchanges. And second, I think when you mention, social media, I think that really definitely plays a very big role. And I think this is a good thing because on the one hand, it does showcase what are the attractive places people can go and so on and so forth. But on the other hand, I think it also in some ways really play a disciplinary role, right? So what I mean is that for a lot of these tourist sites, they feel really, in a way, incentivized to provide the best services that they could provide, right? Because the internet is going to spread the words, and so I think really it helps to boost and improve the kind of service quality. And the one last thing I think is really just timely, as we know the United States is now banning TikTok unless it divests, and a lot of the TikTok users now are migrating, right, calling themselves TikTok refugees now to the Chinese red note, the 小红书. And so again, many people are asking, can you share with me some pictures of China? So I saw many of the posts because my friends are sharing with me, and they're actually showing some pictures of my hometown. It's just so amazing. It's so beautiful, after not visiting, I actually just went there last year. But it just made me feel so homesick. But I also think that it really just opened the eye for a lot of, Americans or foreigners to really see what China looks like, right? I think, again, the Western media is not doing a good job in really updating, today's China. People still don't believe that China has, cutting edge, airports or railway system or subways. And so I think these kinds of people-to-people exchanges on the social media platform is really great to boost the kinds of cultural exchanges and understanding.
Gordon, you live in China. Official data shows, during this 2023-2024 snow season, winter tourism in the country, the nation here, China, increased by 38% year on year, income increasing by 50%. So this is a new feature probably to the China tourism, that's winter tourism. I believe like the winter of 2022, remember this Winter Olympics, it promotes the winter sports for nationwide, young people in particular, and also tourism, to go to Harbin, to go to Altai, simply for skiing or for experiencing some cold weather.
Definitely, and it's of course it is a combination of factors. It's the demand. Liang said that at the beginning. It's demand and supply. The consumers, the tourists, the Chinese people, they are looking for new ways to spend free time, and the pandemic at that time also digitalized and many accessible places. So people were informed about new places. When you talk about Altai in Xinjiang, when you look back a decade or 15 years ago, there was some skiing, but it was not very developed, and they have developed this massively with support of the government, and also, of course, promoted by social media. And that's likewise with Harbin. Harbin is not new for its ice festival. It's going on for decades. And there were always tourists, but it has been booming since now 2 or 3 years. Mm-hmm. And that really massive amounts of people are visiting every winter. So it's both the demand and supply. The supply has increased tremendously in terms of especially quality, but also quantity and diversity. So you are able to choose where to go. And in terms of quality, it has improved significantly at the place, but also how to go there. We didn't talk yet about infrastructure. When we had to go 15, 20 years, we had to go to Harbin. It took us, I cannot recall, but anyway, it took maybe 40 hours by train from Beijing, sleeper train. And now it's just a number of 6-7 hours you are in Harbin. And that's not only for Harbin. The whole high-speed network in China has made it so easy for people to go anywhere, to all corners in China. Of course, has resulted in a stronger growth of tourism, both in winter and summer.
Right. In addition to the ease, I would say, of getting around in China with the development of the infrastructure, high-speed rail. Of course, this is a visa-free policy for dozens of countries, and I believe Simon is one of the tourists from the UK to enjoy such a convenience, to visit China without the hassle for getting the visa. So, Simon, from your experience, so the visa-free arrangement is a success. Many people would say, that's in terms of tourism, that's a huge boost. Your experience?
The visa-free policy is incredible because last year it was at 6 days and now that's been increased to 10 days. At 6 days, it was a huge success. And now it's been increased significantly to the 10-day. It's only going to improve. And this year coming, I'm sure the numbers will be increasing quite significantly. With the power of social media, I know I mention it a lot, but it's fundamentally what I'm involved in as well. So consequently, with the power of social media and the videos that are being created here by the vloggers that are coming over, people coming over, whether they're doing it because they want to post on their own social media or just for generalization, what it does, it just promotes the quality and the infrastructure and the growth and how modern China is. Because unfortunately, the media sometimes does give China a little bit of a harsh representation, and consequently it takes the power of the people. to make the videos themselves, and the power of the people by making the videos can actually give a true representation of what other people can come over to China and actually appreciate with for themselves. So I believe that the 10-day visa now for this year coming is just going to be incredible. We've taken advantage of it, and I'm sure there's going to be countless, probably double, treble the amount of people. I don't know what the forecast is, but I could imagine it's going to be quite significantly more than what it was last year. Compliments of the government's foresight into increasing by 4 days.
Liang, of course, let's take a look at this. Of course, we mentioned about tourism being part of the economy, and then it's about the jobs. There are official statistics show that by 2023, the number of people directly employed in A-level tourist attractions across the country exceeded 1.6 million, and the number of related jobs exceeded 10 million. But of course, if you look at that, that's a related number in the EU, for example, that's about 22 million jobs, much more than that in China. And of course, it's also an important part of the efforts to, let's say, to shift the economic growth from relying on export heavy investment to one driven by consumption and service industry. It's an important part of this transformation. What do you say about that in the creation of jobs in the tourism industry, and also the growth pattern of the economy?
Yeah, I think that is a very important point. I think the tourism industry, it is a tour de force, right, when it comes to generating jobs and the broader service industries as well. China's service industry only accounts for about 50% of the GDP compared to the Western advanced economies. Their tourism industry, their service industry is much bigger, right? 18% or more in their GDP, and also in terms of the employment share. So I think there is a very large room for China to continue to grow the service industry, not only by creating more jobs, but also fueling even more investments. When we look at, for example, retail sales of services, it grows at about 6%, and which is about double the retail sales of consumer goods demand. So we're seeing that there's a huge demand, from consumers for the services, right? Tourism is one of them, but also a lot of other cultural services and other elderly care, healthcare, and so on and so forth. So I think there is a very large demand from the consumer side, but at the same time, I think also by providing more investments, more job creation in the service industry is really going to help to drive the economy forward. Because I think for manufacturing sector, it's going to be more and more upgraded, more and more automation, and that is not going to be a huge, I think, in terms of job creation, even though it does create a lot of value. But the service industry is a lot more labor intensive, right? So I think that's why it holds a great potential for the service industry, especially also for the tourism industry, to create more jobs for the people and also to provide more services for the rising demand for the citizens.
Well, on that note, we are concluding today's show. Many thanks to our guests. You can also watch us on the CGTN app on YouTube. I'm Xu Qinduo. Thanks for being with us. See you next time.